Independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, Nova Scotia, Canada. And today's video features a card that I made this morning. It was such a pleasure to make, I thought I would film it and share it with you. This is the card that I made this morning. Isn't that pretty? And it features some retiring product, and there is a little bit of brand new product in it too. So the Best Birds stamp set and the Coordinating Birds and Blooms dies are retiring. And on the background, I used Timeless Texture stamp set. Creating the background was really easy to do. It's just a bit of stamping and sponging. And then the words are from Thoughtful Banners. There's 53 stamps in this stamp set, and you can create all kinds of sentiments and expressions with it. It's retiring. I also used a couple of punches on this card. See these dies in the background? Those are new. Those are from our Magnolia Memories die collection coming out in our new catalog, and they are part of the Good Morning Magnolia Suite, which is just beautiful, and it adds a really nice little pop of texture. So I'm going to show you how to put this card together, and I hope you try it at home because it's really a really lovely card to do, lots of fun to make, and somebody will love receiving this card from you. So let's get stamping. Okay, so to make this card, I'm using the Best Birds stamp set and the Coordinating Birds and Blooms Thinlit dies, Thoughtful Banners, and Timeless Textures. All of these items are retiring from Stampin' Up! Before our new 2019-2020 annual catalog begins on June 4th. So if you decide that you would like these before they're retired, you need to get them before they're gone. These dies that I also am using on this card are new. Bit of a sneak peek. These are in our new catalog coming out next month. And this is the Magnolia Memory die set, and they coordinate with our Good Morning Magnolia Suite and our Good Morning Magnolia stamp set. So there's leaves, there's a pretty border edge here, and of course all these dies coordinate with the stamps. And for this card, I used this die right here, and it just adds a really pretty texture to the card. So I also used that on today's project. So my card base measures 8.5 by 5.5, and when folded it measures 5.5 by 4 1/4. Then I have a piece of Sahara Sand cardstock, and this measures 4 by 5 1/4. And then I have a scrap piece because I'm going to cut out 2 of these dies out of this paper. So what I want to do first is create my background, and I'm using our Timeless Textures stamp set, and I'm going to use this one right here and the splatter as well. So I'm going to pull those out. And to stamp this, I'm using the Sahara Sand ink pad. And I'm just stamping randomly. And I'm going to stamp again in the center without re-inking, and then I get the nice softer tones. Okay. Now I'm going to use my splatter stamp. And again, I'm just stamping off without re-inking for some of those splatters, just to get the lighter and the darker tones. Okay. In the Best Bird stamp set, we have this really cool image. I'm going to use that next. Okay. Stamp down. This is a great stamp for filling in those empty areas. Now I'm going to add some sponging, and I'm using the Flirty Flamingo Lemon Lime Twist. The Lemon Lime Twist also retires because it is part of our 2017-2019 in colors. And I'm taking a stamp and sponge, and I just cut them up. And I'm just going to lightly sponge on some color. And this will brighten up the background really, really nice. Going in with our Flirty Flamingo, which I think was on that side of the sponge. Okay. and early espresso. So everything on this card is going to be sponged with the early espresso. That's a nice vintagey look. So I'm just sponging around the edge. And then that's it. That's the background for this card. Easy peasy. Just watch, because you will get ink on your fingers and you don't want to get ink on your white and your other pieces. So remember to clean your fingers as you work on your card. Okay, I'm using my liquid glue just because it's out, and put that on there. Decide what side I want up. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside. Now I'm bringing in my Stamparatus because I am going to stamp my bird. I have some scrap pieces of Whisper White left over from different projects, so that's what I'm going to use. I have a hanging file folder where I keep all my cardstock, and I put all my bits and pieces in there, and so I can just pull out these scrap pieces as I need them. Okay, so I've got my bird on there, and you can see I had a bit of ink left over from the last card. That's all right. Ink it up with my early espresso. Oops. There we go. Okay, so I have another piece of scrap Whisper White on there, inking up my branch and pressing down. I'm going to re-ink that because some of those leaves got missed. Oh. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to color these, and I'm using my watercolor pencils. I just keep these in our clear mount cases. And I'm going to grab brown, and I've got my old olive, and what's this one? Okay, so we'll start with these first. Using a little bit of lemon lime twist. This particular watercolor pencil comes in one of our kits. I can't recall the name at the moment, but I like it because it's a nice bright green. And this is Old Olive, and I'm pressing a little bit harder. And my brown, this is Early Espresso. Oh, missed a leaf. And see, there's a little bit of white there. That's fine, because when I use the blender pen to pull all of this together, it'll color that in for me. So I'm taking my blender pen, and I always go back and forth on scrap paper first. See, I actually had yellow on there, so I didn't clean it before I put the lid on. So now that it's coming out clean, it's ready to go. So I'm just going to pull all that color together with my blending pen. And I love our watercolor pencils. It's just like coloring with butter. And then go right along this branch. And it's also going to pick up some of the outline with that early espresso as well, from that stamped image. Okay, so that piece is done. Move on to the bird. So to color the bird, I'm using my Flirty Flamingo and Daffodil Delight. So I'm going to lightly go over the entire bird first with the Daffodil Delight, and then I'm going darker onto the beak, and then the pink I'm just putting on his belly, a little bit on the top of his head and down his back and his wing, and a little bit on the tail. And then I'm just going to blend that in with the blender pen. I'll come and zoom in for you. Okay, so that's what it looks like now, but the blender pen will move all of that color around. So I'm starting in the yellow first, and it's picking up some of that early espresso because it's not a waterproof ink, but it'll pull some of that brown into the bird. So that's why I didn't add any other colors except for the yellow and the pink. See how it blended all those colors in? Clean that. Then I'm taking my clear Wink of Stella and I'm going to color the entire bird with it, and that will also pull some of that color in. Can you see its shimmer? Just adds a nice pretty touch. Okay, so I'm going to cut that out now with the coordinating die. Okay, so I have my big shot and I'm going to do all my die cutting now. So we're going to start with the bird. That on. This has definitely been one of my very, very favorite stamp sets. So I'm sad to see it retiring, but I do keep some of my very favorite stamp sets. I don't get rid of them. This is one that I'll be keeping. Pretty. Set that aside. Put the branch on next. And then the die from the Magnolia Memory set, the new one that's coming out. And I'm going to cut 2 of those. And I'm just going to go back and forth a couple of times to make sure it cuts through really, really well. You see all these little pieces will pop right out. Okay, so I'll come back to that. I just want to cut another one here. Okay. Now I'm taking my leaf punch and I'm going to punch out 3 leaves. And I have a basket where I keep all these tinier bits of cardstock, so I just rummage through my basket and pull out the pieces. So this is just garden green. And this is left over from my last card, so I'm just going to go ahead and punch out 2 of the Four-Petal Flower Punch. Okay, I'm going to sponge these 2 pieces first. And I'm using the Daffodil Delight for that. So I'm doing the edges, but I'm also pulling some of the ink down into that tip a little bit as well. Okay. Actually, I want a little bit more on those bits. There we go. And then I'm using Early Espresso for the other pieces. And these little die cuts are going to get a little sponging as well. A little bit in the center bits. Okay, I have Champagne Shimmer Mist paint mixed in with 70% rubbing alcohol. And I'm going to, no, I don't want to spritz those. I want to spritz the leaves, the green leaves. So give them a little spritz. So this will add a little bit of shimmer, but because they're damp, it'll make it easy for me to just kind of bend up those leaves a little bit and then set them aside to dry. Do the same thing to these. Now for these ones, I'm going to, oh look, see I'm getting the brown. This is why we gotta have clean fingers. Okay, so I'm just gonna bend those up and curl them down as well. But the reason you could use your mist or water when you're doing this, it's just because I use this Champagne Shimmer Mist on everything. It's handy. So not only do I make it a bit pliable by moistening my paper, I'm also getting a little bit of that shimmer paint in there too. Okay, so those can be set aside. All those die cuts can be set aside. The next step is stamping my words, and so this is the Thoughtful Banners stamp set, also retiring as I mentioned earlier. Look at all the words. Oh my goodness, there's like 53 stamps in this whole set, and so yeah, it's pretty fun trying to, you know, create your own sentences and what you want to have. I'm gonna put a I am going to put have a carefree and fabulous birthday, I think. Okay, so I have all the stamps that I need on my block so that I don't lose them. Take my early espresso ink and my little block. Okay. I'm going to start stamping all my words. Okay, so I'm just going to cut these out, and these don't have to be perfectly straight. Okay, so now that I have all my words cut out, I'm going to sponge the edges on all of those, and then it's just a matter of sticking all the pieces on the card, and then it's done. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is put my branch down, and I'm going to cut up a few pieces of my Stampin' Dimensionals. Taking a little bit of my glue and just going to hold that down. Now I'm putting a dimensional behind each of these flowers. And I'm going to put one there. And one there. Some dimensionals behind the bird. I got 3. And I'm also just kind of bending my bird also to give it some dimension so it's not completely flat. Oh wait, before we put the bird down, we need to put some linen thread. And when I put the bird down, I'm going to make sure that the tail is over the flower a little bit. Let me zoom in for you guys. There we go. That's better. The linen thread just kind of adds that little extra texture to your card as well. So I'm just playing around with it and pushing it into that glue. I'm going to put these pieces down. A little bit of glue on the back of that. I'm going to tuck it underneath. And these flower die cuts just add a little bit of pretty dimension. You can use the fine tip glue on this too. Okay, and the leaves. So to finish the card, I am taking our gold gemstones and putting one in each center. Piece of computer paper that I've cut 4 by 5 1/4 for the center, and then I'm going to spritz the entire card with my Champagne Shimmer Mist alcohol mixture, so that I'll let that dry for a second, but then I get all that beautiful shimmer on the background and everywhere on the card, and it is beautiful. So there's my finished card. I love how that turned out. So pretty, and I'll show you the first one that I did. Here's the first one. And this would look pretty if you had pink flowers or coral flowers. You can change the color of the bird, so you've got a blue bird. Possibilities are endless. You could use designer series paper on the background instead of creating your own. These cards were an absolute pleasure to make. I really enjoyed my time making them. So I hope you enjoyed watching today's tutorial. Thank you for watching, and happy stamping.